Hi everybody, as I'm here, your transformation coach and founder of Heal the Heart. I empower you to achieve mental and emotional clarity, find your purpose, and take actions toward living a fulfilled and happier life. We are here for another Birds of Inspiration series video and joined by Annie Schwartz.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for coming, Annie.
Oh, so happy to be here.
Annie is a retired talent agent, and currently she works at
EXP
EXP
as a realtor. Yes.
Like many of us women, she has worn many hats in her life, helped
Yes.
many people. She was a career woman, or is a career woman, a mom, a wife, and a very active individual in the community. And with that comes a lot of challenges. Some of the challenges that, many of us share, but other challenges that might not be shared by so many of us. And emotions and growth, a lot of growth and patience.
Yes.
And she's here to talk about, or to be vulnerable. I like that word.
Yes.
Yes. So Annie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. First of all, let me tell you that I think this is incredible that you do this. I think that you give a voice to not only a lot of women who probably wouldn't necessarily share what you're asking them to share, but by doing that, you've inspired many other people you don't even know by just sharing a story, because sometimes when you hear a story it can make the difference in your life.
Exactly.
So thank you for doing this.
I'm grateful for those of you who are willing to share their stories, however difficult it can be.
Right. But to have that form for somebody to come forward is great. So
Thank you.
I'll just start by saying, my story is that I did start out very early in business. My mother was in the entertainment industry. My parents were in restaurant business. They owned a hotel, and I grew up in a very non-traditional family style. Living in a hotel in Beverly Hills while my parents built a business. And from that restaurant and the success of that restaurant, my mother ended up going into entertainment because it was an entertainment sort of restaurant. And, I watched her from a very young age. She was a very dynamic, exciting woman with a tremendous amount of charisma that was infectious, and people, they really wanted to be around her all the time. But she had a really dark secret. She was an alcoholic. And so I grew up with a mother who was a working alcoholic, but very sad for me because I saw this incredible woman kind of destroy herself. And she died very young. She was 58. I'm 58. And but she left me with sort of an incredible sense of life, because she lived life very full, but she had her demons. And I think she also was trying to find her purpose and meaning, and she got unfortunately internally destroyed, with not a lot of ability to do something like maybe go to therapy or get help or have that dialogue or have that support. So I had that very young in my life. I lost my mother when I was 29, so I or maybe 30, and I was very it was very difficult, right? And I know that's difficult at any age, but it was very difficult because I had one child who was very young, and then I had my husband, and I had just had Alex, my middle one. And when she died, Alex was 4 months old. And so, raising my kids with the idea that I had alcoholism in my family. So I knew that there were challenges, and I also had a brother that had some challenges growing up too. For some reason, I didn't have that part of my life where I was addictive or anything like that, but I grew up surrounded by a family that had that there, and also I was surrounded in a lifestyle of people who were constantly challenged with, a very fast lifestyle.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe you didn't have that because you were more observant and you could see what it does to people.
I think later on in life I found out that I was more of the enabler. I was probably the one who took care of everybody. I was probably the one who stood back and said, wow, that's not me, but I want to take care of my family.
Okay.
And maybe I felt like I was the one who had to be the responsible one.
Okay.
So at an early age I took on a lot of responsibility.
We are beating around this topic.
Yes.
We talked about vulnerability.
Yes.
And what was your biggest challenge as a mom?
Well, my oldest daughter, got involved with drugs, and it was so silly to me because in my mind I thought, I gave her the information. I grew up in a house where there was obviously some issues. I was very honest and open to all of my kids about what life can lead you. One person can change your life in a good way. One person can change your life in a bad way. So you have to be really vigilant and be able to recognize that. And I thought that I was very open and honest about my challenges when I was growing up and whatever. And, my daughter, who is bright and smart and beautiful and all of the things you could imagine, successful, like just a shining light, met somebody in high school that she was completely enamored with, and he was not a good person. And he was doing really, really bad things, and she got caught up in it, and it literally changed her life, and it changed everybody's life in our family. The dynamic completely changed in our whole household because we were living with somebody who was a drug addict. And at first, you as a mother, as somebody, talk about vulnerability, first of all, you blame yourself. Then you feel so much shame that you somehow caused this to happen, and you go through these stages and then you become incredibly angry, and you find out that you have really no power over what has happened to this individual that is your daughter. So there were many stages that we came to, and we obviously had to at some point divorce the situation, which is incredibly hard because at some point, when people, and even if it's your child or somebody that you love is so far into their addiction, you have no control over how it's going to pan out. You can't stop it, you can't start it, you can't beg a person to stop, you can't control the outcome. You have to kind of get your own sort of sanity by getting strength in the fact that, you pray for the best, and then you do whatever you can, but you have to kind of divorce yourself from, you have no power over the situation. Okay. It's a very difficult place.
It's coming to that place of acceptance.
Well,
and surrendering to what is in front of you that you really don't have any control over.
Well, yeah, but in the long run, you've got 2 other kids that are being destroyed. You've got a marriage that is definitely in high intensity. Thankfully for me, my husband and I are best friends, and we have always had such a great relationship, and even in the most intense moments, we relied on one another rather than separating, which I know could go either way. But we really did rely on the strength of each other to do the things and make the decisions that we had to. But of course it affected our other 2 kids, and that was the real challenge. We were fortunate. We understood the value of getting help and seeking help. And so when you talk about vulnerability and you talk about sharing, these things that happen in your life, it's very scary to talk about because no one wants to talk about their child that's a drug addict, and no one wants to talk about the things that happen when that happens, and the insanity that goes on in your house, and just the crying and the screaming and the out of control behavior. So we sought help, and we of course provided help for our daughter every which way we could, but that doesn't make any difference if that person is not interested in help. Thankfully, over time, our daughter did end up seeking